to be here, and I hope that you are excited to be here. I don't know if you know this, but this session was set up to be TED Talk in style. Did you read that on your program? So I did something that I don't typically do. I tossed all my slides. So I did it on purpose. It was very intentional. Got a cover slide, and I've got an end slide. But I intentionally wanted to just be with you in this moment. So I hope you appreciate that, and I hope you will be with me. We've got 30 minutes together, and I'm going to make the most of it. This is my slide. You love it? Yeah. So here's the deal. I have loved being in the midst of 2,400 people over the last day and a half, haven't you? And as I've looked out at everybody, I love to stand back and just observe a little. And as I've looked out at everybody, I see this look that I see on your face right now. People are like relaxed and kind of refreshed and renewed, right? It's almost like it's summer vacation or something. I don't know. I would be willing to bet that 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, that may not have been the case. True? You may not have looked this way or even felt this way. In fact, if you're like the many teachers and counselors and administrators that I have the privilege of working with, they would tell you, I felt overwhelmed. In fact, you might have even thought to yourself, they can't possibly put one more thing on my plate, right? And they, whoever they is, could be your principal or the district office or the state. And here's the truth of the matter. They put more on our plates because more is being put on theirs. And that kind of makes my heart sad because it's true. Educators today are overwhelmed, sometimes both physically and emotionally exhausted. But it's also true that we serve a phenomenal profession, a vocation really, where we have this opportunity to have a positive impact on our students and their families and our colleagues, right? So I am here to encourage you. That's what we're about in this moment. I'm glad to hear that enthusiasm. I am here to encourage you and to remind you that not only are we educators, we are igniters of hope, right? And when we focus on hope first, then we are more likely to be refreshed and renewed every day, not just in the summer. So I want to share with you today 5 ways to ignite hope. Are you with me? Yes. All right. Number 1, the first way we ignite hope, we have got to remember our why. You've heard a lot of talk about this. Simon Sinek, author of Start With Why, he says this. He says, we can know what we need to do. We can even know how to do it. But unless we know our why, it lacks meaning and purpose. We have to go back to why we chose our professions in the first place. We chose to teach or to lead, to be igniters of hope for a reason. I want to introduce you to mine. This is my sister, Kelly. This picture was taken, a couple months before she passed away. She was in the 6th grade. I was just a year younger. My sister was born with a liver disease. And had she been born today, who knows? She may have had a transplant as a child, as an infant. But in 1965, I'm sharing my age with you, in 1965, that wasn't quite the case. And so we were blessed with almost 12 years. And blessed is an understatement for people that knew and loved my sister. She was just pure joy. My sister was full of compassion. She was intelligent. She was spunky. I hope I got a little of that from her. She had this giggle that was just contagious. She loved school. In school, she had loyal friends and adults, from our bus driver, Mrs. Borda, to the yard duties, to teachers, to our principal, who supported her and encouraged her and challenged her to learn. So she loved school. But that doesn't mean it was easy for her. I mean, academically, she did well. But the other parts were tough because for the kids that didn't know her and love her, they tended to judge her by what they saw on the outside. I don't know if you can tell by my picture, but my sister was very jaundiced. So if you picture a newborn baby who's jaundiced, there's a little yellow tinge to their skin. Well, my sister's skin tone was green. And in addition to that, her little tummy was so swollen because her liver didn't work right. So it was swollen inside her belly cavity. She was a little bit short for her age. So for kids that didn't know her well, what did they see? This little girl with a big belly and green skin. So she was an easy target for being stared at or teased, taunted, bullied by today's standards. In fact, I'll always remember Richard. It was this one boy. Whenever Mrs. Judd, the yard duty, wasn't, paying attention. Green Martian! Hey, Green Martian, what are you doing? It was his favorite name for her. Wasn't the worst of what he did, but that's the name that sticks in my mind, in my heart. So I chose my vocation. I served as a teacher and a principal for 25 years in the realm of alternative education, working with students who were up against all odds. And I continue to serve. I am so excited to work with educators in the realm of professional learning, making a difference, making an impact with kids because of my sister. You all have a reason too, a person or an experience, your why. I want to encourage you to keep it in your heart, in the forefront, in your mind, all that you are and all that you do. Because so often in education, it's so easy to get caught up in things like assessment schedules, measurable outcomes, right? Performance frameworks, all of these things that we have to do, and they are important, don't get me wrong. The administrator in me knows that. But we can't lose sight of that which is right in front of us, the human beings, right? When we focus on our human beings, those who we serve by teaching, leading, those with whom we serve, we share our time and talents. We focus on the human beings, then we know that when we walk down the hall and we connect eyes with someone and we give a smile, it ignites hope for a positive day. When we give an encouraging word in the classroom, or we provide opportunities for students to get in that pit and work together, we ignite hope for learning. And when we set high expectations for our students and ourselves and our colleagues, and we collaborate and work together, we ignite hope for personal and academic success. When we remember our reason, we ignite hope. That's number one. Number two, we ignite hope when we believe intentionally in our students, our colleagues, and ourselves. According to John Hattie's Visible Learning Research, you all saw it this morning, the number one influence on student learning, collective teacher efficacy. So what does that mean? It's our belief as a body of educators in our students' ability to achieve and in our ability to make an impact on their learning. So I want you to think about your schools. Who are the human beings that make up the adults on the staff? It's us collaborating, working together, challenging each other, believing, and turning that belief into attitude with action. That's intentionality. We've seen it with our kids. They succeed, right? When we recognize their strengths, when we cultivate their creativity, when we set high expectations for behavior and academics, we see them believe in themselves. So we need to encourage this because it takes that intentional effort. So often today in schools, kids don't believe in themselves. As an administrator, I can't tell you the number of times I heard this. Miss T, I can't. You don't get it. My brain doesn't work that way. Right? I tried before. I just can't. They'd say it to my teachers as well. And all of us together, here's what we'd say back. We'd say, you know what? You might not believe yet, but we believe. So grab on to our belief until you get there too. And we intentionally would show them what we meant. Now, Michaela's an ideal example of this. Michaela came to our school at the end of her junior year, and I remember the moment she walked into my office to enroll. Her head was down. She was a really quiet voice, and she said, I think I have to go to school here. It might be the only way I can graduate. See, the whole year prior, she had been homeless. She'd missed a lot of school. So she lost many of her junior credits. She still needed to earn her entire junior year. And so our staff was like, bring it on. Come on. We got this. And we watched Michaela blossom. In fact, she gained confidence. She recovered her junior credits. She earned her senior credits. She participated in community service, which was a requirement at our school, began mentoring other students. And by the end of the year, when I'm tallying everything for valedictorian, guess who rose to the top? Yeah, it was Michaela. But here's the thing. So I have this vision in my mind. I'm so excited to tell her. And I have this vision of her jumping up and down and being so excited. I even grabbed her mentor. I said, come into my office. We're going to tell Michaela. I wanted to share this excitement. So I called Michaela down. I said, Michaela, I'm so excited to tell you. You earned the spot of valedictorian this year. And there was no jumping. There was no screaming. Here's what she did. She froze. Her face got incredibly red, and she took both hands and went like this. Crocodile tears started running down her hands. And I reached out and I said, Michaela, what? Here's what she said. I didn't know I was smart. And her mentor and I, we looked at each other and in unison we said, we did? And she goes, I knew! And then she started jumping up and down and laughing and crying, and she was so excited. We've got to believe in our kids and recognize their strengths, because sometimes they don't believe in themselves. And for some kids, finding those strengths is challenging, huh? Because sometimes there's more negatives than positives. So we got to take time, even if it means turning a negative into a positive. That kid that's always in your face, always the classroom disruption, always getting in trouble, you say to that kid, man, you got persistence. You know what that equals? Perseverance. That's a character trait. It's going to get you far in life. And then we say, hey, Mr. Smith, did you know Johnny has perseverance? And we share it with our colleagues. And pretty soon Johnny's going, I got perseverance. Right? We got to believe in them. We got to believe in each other, work together, challenge each other, share our own strengths, and we'll ignite hope. Number 3, we ignite hope when we have a human mind frame. Now, I just read 10 mind frames for visible learning. Have you guys read it? If you haven't, you need to. It's amazing. But I'll tell you what, a human mind frame is embedded in each one. A human mind frame focuses on humanity first. It acknowledges that all of our kids are all of our kids. Not just the easy ones, the ones that come to school, prepared, and they sit down and they're eager to learn. Not just if we're a classroom teacher, those kids that sit in our classroom. It's not just them. If we're a principal or a counselor or nurse. It's not just the kids that always end up in our office. All of our kids are all of our kids. From the moment we walk in the door at school, every student we encounter is our child. All of our kids. A human mindset recognizes every student, regardless of color. Black, brown, white, green, like my sister. Regardless of socioeconomic status, or sexuality, or gender identity, or physical, or mental, or learning challenge. Regardless, all of our kids are all of our kids. We're in it together. A human mindset also recognizes this: the deed is not the doer. There is a child behind every test score, and a human being behind every behavior. I want you to keep in mind there's a human being behind the most irritating behaviors of your colleagues as well. Okay? It's important. We can't forget that, because they drive us crazy sometimes. But we won't be able to work together if we don't remember our humanity. We're human first, right? We've got to keep that in mind. Because in the context of kids, I want you to consider that some of the students that we have the most difficult time building relationships with, the ones who tend to be either aggressors or victims of bullying, the ones who we see in our offices every day or we send to the office every day, these are often kids living in the reality of adversity, right? They might act tough. I had a lot of kids that came in with this tough spirit, attitude, or like they don't care. They might be really passive. They might be rude or disrespectful. But Eric Jensen, author of Teaching with the Brain in Mind and so many other amazing books, he says this. He says behavior that comes off as apathetic or rude may actually indicate feelings of hopelessness and despair, right? And we see this in our kids. We got to do our best to grab onto our empathy. Say, I am here with you, not sympathy. I don't feel sorry for you, but I'm here with you. I'm going to see under that facade to the story behind the student. And sometimes it helps us to get to this place to ask this question: what are our students carrying in their invisible backpacks? Because they all have them. And so do we and our colleagues, right? Now, some of our backpacks are a little lighter. Some of us have more stability and more opportunity, more strategies for dealing with stress or trauma. But for others, for a lot of our students, those backpacks are heavy with experiences and trauma that some of us may know nothing about. Homelessness and neglect, sexual abuse, mental illness, incarcerated parents, not knowing where the next meal is going to come from. We can't assume to know what our kids are going through. We can't assume that behavior is about the kid just wanting to be defiant or disrespectful. Eric is my greatest reminder of this. Eric is 25 now. But when he was 17, he was finally finding success in school. He was finally sober, and he was earning credits. He was a junior at my high school at the time. My high school was a place where we randomly had the drug dogs come visit, right? So you can see where this story's going. Drug dogs visited Eric's classroom, and a dog hit on Eric's bag. So proper procedure was this: grab the bag, grab the kid, and you walk down to the office, right? So as we're walking down, Eric starts crying. I said, listen, bud, we're going to get through this. Might be consequences. You know that. But we're going to get through this. And he said, T, it's not that. It's not drugs. He was right. It's not what we found in his backpack. I mean, the dog hit properly. That bag had carried marijuana. I guarantee it. Probably months before. But Eric had remained sober. In fact, what we found in his bag was this: a pair of underwear, a pair of socks, a t-shirt, and a receipt from a motel room from a few nights before. See, Eric had determined that if he was going to stay sober, he had to leave his house. So he gathered up all of his video games and he went to the pawn shop, and he made just enough money to spend one night in a motel room. And since then, he'd been couch surfing and sleeping in a friend's car, and his tears were about the fact that if we found out he wasn't living at home, he was afraid that because of the school zones, the district, he was out of our district, that he'd lose his opportunity to stay in school. We cannot assume to know what our kids are going through, what they're carrying. We've got to remember all of our students are children first. Now, that's not to say if there is a behavior that compromises our high expectations, that we should negate it. I mean, we've got to continue to have high expectations and accountability. I found that as a principal, I was a firm disciplinarian. But those boundaries that I set helped kids to feel safe. I have a lot of administrators that come to me. My book is Start with the Heart. And so they think, oh, I do that all the time. I'm loving with my kids. And the teachers will say, yeah, but he doesn't discipline or she doesn't discipline. And that causes problem. There has to be a balance, right? We've got to keep that balance. But we cannot discipline disregarding the child, the human being who is seeking love and acceptance and safety. Because so many of our kids are just trying to survive. There's an amazing human being by the name of David Osher. He's a researcher, an author, and champion of children. And he says, as educators, we need to ask ourselves, are our students thriving or simply surviving? If we want our students to thrive, we need to see them for who they are and for what they've been through. We need to meet them there in the pit and work with them to help them to achieve. When we believe intentionally, we impact learning. John Hattie says, know thy impact. If us working together as educators is a leading influence on student learning, then believing intentionally ignites hope and matters. Number 4, the fourth way to ignite hope is to choose love. Now, I know that love is not like the leading evidence-based research today in education, right? But we have to consider it. It is vital if our ultimate goal is student achievement. And here's what it comes back to. No slides, so I went old school. Here's what it comes back. Don't you love this? It comes back to Maslow. We were all taught Maslow's hierarchy of needs when we pursued higher education. We all believe in the premise. We know that physiological needs and safety needs must be met first, right? And then there's a need of love and acceptance, belonging. And then esteem and ego comes into play. And ultimately, we can work towards self-actualization. But here's what I want you to consider. In schools, for some of our kids, school is the one place that they are assured their physiological and safety needs are being met. I mean, for a lot of my kids, when they came to school, that was the one place that they knew I got a roof over my head, food in my belly, and in some cases, clothes on my back. We went to uniforms and brought in washer and dryer for a reason. So if that's the case, even for some of our kids, then shouldn't it look more like this? To start with the heart hierarchy. Love is the basis of all we do. And with that comes encouragement and empathy. But once we meet kids there, then we could start with our high expectations and accountability, and they'll be responsive to them. See, and then we get self-actualization, success, personally and academically. Because when we come from a place of love, it fosters trust and self-efficacy, not only looking at my strengths, but looking at my areas of challenge. Where do I need support? Where do I need help? It fosters that ability for us to believe in each other enough and trust each other enough to ask for help. It fosters students who are prepared and ready to learn. Choosing love ignites hope. Number 5, the 5th way to ignite hope. You all know it's important. We got to build relationships. And I know you know it's important because you do it on a daily basis, but you also experienced it as a student. When I'm out working in schools now, I'll ask educators to think back over their own experience in school and to share with each other what stands out. It's always about a person and never about a subject matter. Every time. I mean, someone might say, I loved math. But it's always followed by something like this. Because of Mrs. Yamada. She was amazing. And then they tell this story about Mrs. Yamada. It's about the people, not the things. So building relationships. It's not about one more thing to do. We already determined we do not need more on our plates. So it's not about what we do. It's about how we be. Now, I know I'm sitting here with a bunch of educators. How we be is not grammatically correct, but it's incredibly intentional. In order to build relationships, we need to be connected. And to be connected, we need to be present. Sometimes that means being still. And I know how important this is because I'm horrible at it, right? My husband said to me once, you guys will love this. He goes, babe, sometimes you just got to close your tabs. I was like, what? I mean, I was automatically defensive, and I had no idea what he meant. I did. I was just like, what? What do you mean, close my tabs? So he went on to explain. He goes, it's just an analogy. It's like a computer with 20 tabs open, and you bebop from one to the next. He goes, that's you. Like, that's your brain, and that's your body. You're always going. He goes, sometimes you just need to be in the moment. I had like an epiphany. It's like, he's right. I mean, it's epiphany because he was right, but he was right. You know? Because I'm like this all the time. I don't know if you've noticed, I have a little energy. So I'd be in the middle of the hall, and I'd be walking, and a kid would say, T, I got a question. And I'd go, walk with me. I got an answer. And we'd go on our way. We all do it every day, right? Think about it. When you pass somebody in the hall, or in the grocery store, in the parking lot, walking in, whatever. We walk by somebody and we go, hi, how are you? And we keep walking. I don't care how she is. Not if I mean, I do. But not if I keep walking. Like, it took me a minute to realize intentionality in being connected is so important. I went through a time in my life where I got really ill. And so I went through treatment, and I was down and out, and I had to be still, and I missed some school. And in that time, I got to reflect. And I realized my energy and my enthusiasm, it means nothing. It's meaningless. If I don't stop, look someone in the eye, ask, how are you? Or any other question, and then listen for the answer. Because think about it. If we take time to stop, look, ask, and listen, then the next day when we see that kid in the hall, we could say something like this. Hey, how are you doing today? I know yesterday you were concerned about your dad because he wasn't feeling well and he missed work, and that worried you. Is he feeling better today? And with that, relationships are built. right? One more way we can be connected is to connect kinesthetically. Now, I know this. I know in schools today we're given a directive, especially in the realm of special education. What is it? Do not touch kids. But I'm going to tell you this. There are ways to appropriately touch with a high five, fist bump, a handshake. And for those kids for whom, because of experience, trauma, religion, culture, what be it, that touch really is inappropriate, we need to respect that, then touch something they're connected to show them that connection is important to you. Because science tells us when we have a positive social or physical connection, oxytocin is released in our brains. And when that happens, we feel happier. In addition to feeling happier, we are more focused and more concentrated, more able to concentrate. If we look someone in the eye and we use their name, we also get a rush of serotonin and dopamine. And that cortisol actually decreases. Kids are more able and ready to learn. When we build relationships, when we be connected, we ignite hope. So I want to end just on this one story. I'm in Walmart the other day, literally. And I'm at the end of the bubbly water aisle. And way down, you know Walmart, long aisles, way down the aisle, I hear this. T, Mrs. T, is that you? And at the end of the aisle, there's this man, like 30 years old, flat-billed cap, tats all over his arms, and he comes barreling down the aisle, right? He lifts me up in this bear hug. And I wasn't even sure who it was, so I stepped away and I was like, Maddie from the 9th grade. And yes, it was Maddie. And in the 9th grade, Maddie was trying to get sober, and I asked him how he was doing. He said, man, it's been a long haul. But he said, I'm there. It's been years. I'm sober, and I'm running my own business. He was so proud to tell me. And then as he walked away, we hugged again, and he walked away, and I stood there in the middle of the aisle with this goofy smile on my face, and my heart was just full of joy. Joy that stemmed from hope. See, I might have ignited a little hope in Maddie in the 9th grade, but in that moment, he brought me hope, and he reminded me that as educators, we must be renewed and refreshed every day because we are igniters of hope. Go out, know thy impact, and be igniters of hope. Thank you. I do want to tell you one thing. If you want more, maybe, hang on. Oh, here we go. Did you see it? Here, I'm going to bring it up. If you want more stories, more strategies specific to social and emotional learning, check out my new book. Let's see if this will come up. Check out my new book, Start with the Heart. It's in the bookstore. If you're interested in professional learning with me or any other Corwin authors, you can tell them that too. We love what we do. We appreciate you. Go out and have a great day. Thanks so much.